Welcome to this deep dive. We're here to break down complex subjects and pull out the key insights for you.
And today, we're diving into a really extensive and often, well, quite disturbing interview with Shaun Attwood.
Yeah, focusing on the allegations he talks about, concerning Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, and Jimmy Savile. It's all based on his research and what he shared in that specific interview.
Right, and it's really important right from the get-go for you to know our source here is a YouTube interview. So that means we're dealing with some very serious allegations, and frankly, some might not have independent verification.
Exactly. Our goal isn't to, prove or disprove anything here.
Yeah.
We just want to really unpack what was actually said in the interview, the perspectives offered there.
It's about understanding that web of claims, the different viewpoints.
Right, while totally acknowledging, how sensitive and controversial this stuff is.
Mm.
Okay, so let's get into it, starting with Virginia Giuffre. The interview highlights some suspicious things around her death.
Yeah, the timing, especially considering her very public accusations against Prince Andrew and others tied to Epstein.
And those accusations against Andrew, as Atwood lays them out in the interview, they were pretty specific.
Very specific. He talks about 3 locations where Giuffre said the assaults happened, an Epstein place in America, one in London.
Which the interview notes reporters even went to.
Right, and Epstein's Island, the notorious one.
And on the island.
Yeah.
Well, the interview relays Giuffre's account, and the claims get incredibly dark.
Yeah, the swimming pool orgy allegation involving underage girls and Prince Andrew. It's a really heinous claim to even think about.
The interview also touches on this alleged pipeline, right? Trafficking underage girls from Eastern Europe.
Supposedly run by Jean-Luc Brunel, who himself died later in a French prison.
And there's that really awful anecdote reported in the interview. Epstein supposedly joking about getting 12-year-old triplets from Brunel.
As a, quote, birthday present. Just deeply disturbing claims, and these are part of Giuffre's documented accusations.
Then there's the whole confusion around how she actually died. The interview mentions conflicting information.
Yeah, first report said a car accident, but then there's mention of maybe an intercepted message about a terminal illness.
And also evidence of prior domestic violence that apparently came out in court papers. It makes the whole situation very unclear and concerning.
It really does. The interview brings up this term, farmerside, Pharmacide,
Right.
suggesting maybe a mix of, huge external stress and increased medication could have played a role.
Like external pressures making underlying issues fatal. A bleak theory.
Very bleak. And then adding another layer, the interview mentions Lady Victoria Hervey,
Oh, yeah.
allegedly trolling Giuffre online about her bus accident and her death, which is just...
Wow. It just shows the kind of intense, hostile atmosphere around all this.
Absolutely. And the interview also raises this unsettling idea, did Giuffre know about other big names involved with Epstein?
Implying a possible motive for someone wanting her silenced.
It's a heavy implication. And we should remember, as the interview points out, she did reach settlements.
Right. With Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein himself, and Prince Andrew.
Which, okay, settlements aren't admissions of guilt, legally speaking, but they definitely show how serious her claims were, the risk involved for those accused.
Okay, so that's Jeffrey. The interview then shifts focus quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yes, it moves on to another really controversial figure linked to Epstein, Bill Clinton.
Right. Former President Clinton. And the allegations there, as laid out in the interview, mostly circle around his connection to Epstein.
Specifically, the claims about him flying on Epstein's jet, the Lolita Express, supposedly multiple times.
And the interview specifies, often with young Eastern European women, and apparently without his usual security detail.
Which is significant, if true. And then there's that claim from Juliet Bryant, an Epstein survivor who's spoken out.
What did she say?
The interview recounts her allegation, it's pretty gruesome, about a smell of death and cleaning chemicals after Clinton supposedly used certain rooms.
Wow. A deeply unsettling detail mentioned in the interview.
And the interview doesn't stop there. It brings up these broader, older allegations against Clinton.
Like being a serial rapist and cokehead, supposedly going back to his time as governor of Arkansas. Very serious accusations that have been around a while.
Then the interviewee discusses this whole theory. It's circulated in some places about the CIA potentially using Arkansas for cocaine smuggling back then.
And that Clinton, as governor, might have provided some kind of state protection for drug drops. We need to be clear, this is a specific theory being relayed from the interview.
Absolutely. It's Attwood presenting this information. The interview also brings up Roger Clinton, Bill's half-brother.
His cocaine arrest, right.
Yes, and a statement reportedly attributed to him in the interview basically saying some of the coke was for Bill, alleging a serious drug habit.
The interview also touches on Hillary Clinton's alleged role in all this.
Yeah, claims that she worked hard to silence Bill's accusers, using private investigators' threats.
Painting a picture of, like, really aggressive damage control.
Which leads into the mention of that hashtag Clinton body count.
Ah, yes. The long-running online conspiracy theory. This list of people linked to the Clintons who died suspiciously.
The interview also names a specific coroner, Femi Malik, who allegedly changed causes of death in some of these cases.
And it notes how Trump used this stuff politically, right? Bringing Clinton's accusers to the debates.
As a, quote, show of force. Yeah, it shows how these allegations persist and get used.
The interview references that book, Compromised, by Terry Reid, too.
Reid claimed firsthand knowledge of Clinton and alleged drug trafficking, and Alex Jones's reporting on it is mentioned, too.
So, kind of showing the history of these claims in certain media spaces.
Right. And given all that, plus the flight logs reportedly mentioning women with Soviet-sounding names, the interviewee basically says it'd be naive to think Clinton's trips were just social.
Suggesting a strong probability, in his view, of Clinton being involved in the Epstein network. Okay. So, after Clinton, the interview touches on other British figures.
Yeah, but it's a bit more cautious there, acknowledging it's hard to make specific claims without solid proof.
But it does mention Naomi Campbell.
As someone who sort of pops up as a link between the Epstein circle and the Diddy circle, but no direct accusations against her in the interview itself.
Right, the interviewee actually says he wants to bite their tongue on naming more names beyond those already publicly linked.
Which really underlines the potential legal issues and reputational damage involved in making these kinds of allegations.
Okay, so let's turn now to, well, another incredibly dark subject covered in the interview, Jimmy Savile.
Yeah. And the interview starts by pointing out something quite striking. Even now, some people still defend Savile, refuse to believe the mountain of evidence.
Which really says something about how powerful his public image was, doesn't it?
Definitely. And how hard it is for some to face that kind of darkness. The interviewee then tries to explain how Savile got away with it for so long.
Connections, right? That seems key.
Huge connections, allegedly a massive network, including this reported weekly lunch club with Leeds police officers.
Wow. And the interview suggests complaints about Savile might have been, what, filtered back to him?
Filtered back to his buddies through this club, basically protecting him. And survivors apparently felt terrified to report him because he seemed untouchable.
And those incidents at Stoke Mandeville Hospital, just heartbreaking.
Horrifying. Nurses apparently saw him with vulnerable kids, disabled kids, but felt they couldn't do anything because he raised so much money for the hospital.
It's a chilling example of how power and, well, apparent good deeds can be twisted.
The interview also mentions the kind of cultural backdrop, a Benny Hill culture, maybe some moral fuzziness that let things slide.
But the really disturbing idea raised in the interview is that Savile wasn't just acting alone.
No, the belief discussed is that he was procuring victims for a network, possibly including really high-profile people.
Even suggestions of royalty.
Yeah.
And Lord Mountbatten.
Those names are mentioned as possibilities within that alleged network. And the interview explores this potential link between Savile and Epstein, too.
Through intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
Like MI5, MI6 for Savile, CIA for Epstein.
Yeah, suggesting maybe their worlds overlapped somehow, even if they weren't, directly working together. It raises questions.
Savile's own background, as the interview lays it out, is just bizarre.
It really is. From being called a miracle child, working in the coal mines, then becoming this huge DJ.
Plus all the rumors of underworld links. Wrestling, even torture.
Yeah, it paints a picture of someone very strange, maybe sinister, even before the abuse revelations.
And the alleged links to serial killers. Peter Sutcliffe, the Moors murderers.
Those are mentioned in the interview, too, deepening the sense of darkness around him, and Edwina Curry giving him keys to Broadmoor.
The high-security psychiatric hospital. With more allegations of abuse happening there, it's unbelievable access and trust.
Astonishing, really. Then there's the BBC's role. The interview really goes after them.
Claims that BBC staff actually helped Savile, screened victims for him.
That's the claim from Kelly Gold, who is a dancer on Top of the Pops. That staff were essentially complicit, maybe for other stars too.
And the tragic story of Cloupine, the survivor who kept a diary.
Yeah, detailing abuse by famous acts on Top of the Pops. She later took her own life. And the interview suggests the BBC basically buried her story, protected their stars, and even painted victims badly.
Just awful. There's also that anecdote about Savile being stopped by police.
With a 15-year-old girl in the car, yeah. And his reaction was reportedly so intimidating, referencing his connections, that the police backed off.
Shows his audacity. And the fear he inspired.
He apparently called schools his sweet shops, just
Yeah.
chilling insight into his predatory view of the world.
And the interview asks, were there others at the BBC suggesting this kind of club mentality, protect our own above all else?
The interviewee is really strong on this, calling the molestation of a child the most evil act.
And say that enabling it, protecting the abusers.
Yeah.
That's akin to being satanic. Very strong words.
It is. He draws a parallel to how the Catholic Church has sometimes handled abuse cases, using lawyers to protect the institution.
And as noted, Savile died clutching a cross.
Yeah, but the interviewee dismisses it as just for show, believes Savile lacked any real morals, obsessed only with his image and, bizarrely, his dead mother, even hinting at darker fixations there.
The interview also briefly touches on alleged abuse involving other Savile family members.
Yes, suggesting it might have been a wider pattern within the family.
And there's that psychological point the interview brings up. People doing charity work sometimes feel entitled to misbehave elsewhere.
Like a kind of moral balancing act in their own heads? Maybe offering a warped explanation for Savile's public philanthropy versus his private evil?
Then the interview mentions other charities potentially misused or linked to problematic people.
Like the Clinton Foundation, Oxfam, even BBC Children in Need, raising wider questions about oversight in the charity sector.
Louis Theroux's interview with Savile gets a mention too.
Yeah, confronting him on camera about the rumors while Savile was still alive. A significant moment.
And finally, Johnny Rotten knowing about Savile early on.
Apparently. Suggesting the rumors were circulating in some circles, maybe linked to the Sex Pistols being banned by the BBC.
Okay, that's a lot on Savile.
Yeah.
The interview also gives us a little bit about Shaun Attwood himself, his background.
Just briefly, yeah. He talks about his past, smuggling drugs, ending up in a really rough Arizona prison.
Arizona's deadliest, he calls it. Describes extreme violence.
Yeah. And his absolute lowest point, facing maybe 200 years, total isolation, thinking about ending it all.
A really dark place.
But then he talks about how reading philosophy in prison kind of saved him. Nietzsche, the Stoics, introspection.
Right, which gives some context for maybe how he approaches these heavy subjects now.
Exactly. Though the interview also acknowledges Attwood does lean into some conspiracy theories.
Yeah, the interviewer notes that. Things like 9/11, vaccines. Attwood has certain views, and the interviewer expresses more skepticism.
It's important for you, the listener, to just be aware of that lens he uses.
Although the interview does also point out that views can change, citing someone like Dr. John Campbell on the COVID vaccine, whose perspective evolved.
Shows how information and beliefs aren't static, you know?
And finally, there's this idea of heretic admiration, briefly touched on.
Yeah, liking figures who challenge the status quo. Nietzsche comes up again, living life like art.
And the Stoics' Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. Their ideas about controlling your reactions' inner strength.
Which Attwood apparently found really useful in prison. There's also that anecdote about the crematory worker.
Putting things in perspective, our small place in the universe.
And reinforcing that Stoic viewpoint, yeah. And the interview ends that section mentioning Attwood's TED Talk.
About finding happiness after facing huge prison time.
Yeah.
And realizing others had it worse.
Exactly. It highlights his resilience, his search for meaning, provides a backdrop to the whole conversation.
Okay, so just to wrap up this deep dive, we've looked at some incredibly serious allegations against very public figures.
We've explored the complexities, particularly around historical abuse with the Jimmy Savile case.
And we've also touched on the, frankly, quite remarkable personal story of the interviewee, Shaun Attwood.
And again, just to be absolutely clear, we've focused only on what was presented in that source interview.
Right. We haven't verified these claims independently. We're not making judgments on whether they're true or not.
Absolutely not. We really encourage you to think critically about all this. And if you want to know more, do your own research.
Yeah, these are complicated, sensitive topics. Consider the different angles, the difficulty in finding the truth in stories like these.
And approach it with diligence and respect for everyone who might have been affected.
If you do want to hear more from Shaun Attwood directly, his YouTube channel and other platforms are out there. We'll try to link them if we can.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. When power can be misused so profoundly, What really works to ensure accountability? And what does all this do to our trust in people and in institutions?